This morning, we are delighted to have with us the president of the St. Kitts and Nevis Bar Association, Ms. Carolyn Merchant, to talk about this and her career as an attorney at law. Good morning, Carolyn, and it's our pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning, SKN.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure indeed. So we'll begin. You studied in London and ended up returning to your home of St. Kitts and Nevis. Tell us about this experience.
Well, I studied in Barbados and Jamaica as well. I did my master's in London for a year. London, it's a different dynamic to St. Kitts and Nevis. However, in terms of academics, it's an excellent city and an excellent school. You get a wide range of opportunities. I was able to represent my school at a conference all the way in Bali and given different opportunities to engage with worldwide leaders in the energy sector, which was my focus. And I studied on a full Chevening scholarship, so all expenses paid. But at the same time, I was obligated to return to my home country, which I would have been happy to do in any respect.
Oh, okay. So.
All right, so let's talk about that for a little bit. Not just your Bali experience, which I'm sure there were some highlights. What highlights can you give us about that?
Highlights from Bali would be meeting other persons, like-minded persons from every walk of the world, in different parts of the world, different languages. The conference was specific to an energy sector. And another highlight would have been experiencing the culture of the Indonesian people. That was awesome. The food in Indonesia is wonderful. It's a different type of cooking to what we are accustomed to, but very tasty. The people are very friendly. And of course, the natural beauty of the place was just awesome.
Why did you study, or why did you delve into the energy sector?
So I've gotten that question a whole lot. Believe it or not, St. Kitts and Nevis and even the region is or can be a leading country in terms of renewable energy. So my focus, while I would have studied some aspect of fossil fuel, my focus would have been on renewable energy. I did an entire thesis on renewable energy and geothermal. Specifically, my school allowed me to study our own geothermal ordinance in St. Kitts and Nevis. So I was able to, on an international platform, put forward the regulatory structure and system in St. Kitts and Nevis, offer recommendations, critique it, pull out what needs to be gone, suggest what needs to be improved. And I think that would have been beneficial coming back home. So I would have gotten some first-hand guidance and experience in terms of setting up St. Kitts and Nevis as a strong regulatory country in renewable energies.
That's quite a niche area. Before you began your studies in law, did you ever think of taking this course in energy?
So when a master's is a very specialized, usually it's a very specialized area of law. When I first considered doing my master's, of course, the first area would have been corporate and commercial, which I think is the primary area that most lawyers focus on. I was given the opportunity to sit on the Nevis Solid Waste Management Board. And at the time, the Nevis Solid Waste Management Board was considering a waste-to-energy plant. So that triggered my interest in terms of renewable energy, in terms of the potential that we have in renewable energy, solar. I also worked for a law firm which was involved in the wind farm on Nevis. So the areas triggered my interest, and I would have gone and done some research. And it so happened I applied for the Chevening Scholarship that year, and the examiners were more than impressed with my choice of study. So I was awarded the scholarship, and that was the start of my studies and academic specialization in the area.
So are you the only person that studies this? Are you going to try to get others who may be interested in law to go into this part of law as well?
Well, I always encourage young students to expand beyond the traditional corporate and commercial studies. I think we have a lot of human rights specialists right now, so it's always good to expand and go into an area that is not highly populated in terms of experts. So of course I would encourage anyone. I would have had a conversation with one or two attorneys. Most persons go the route of environmental law. So I think we may have one or two persons who already have masters, but I think when I chose that area, environmental law was also already populated. There were some persons who already had it. And because I think Nevis in particular has been pushing the green energy, that was where I wanted to go.
Oh, nice, nice.
So you're right at home.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right, so tell us about your journey to becoming the president of the Bar Association.
Okay, so a few years ago when I returned, a very senior member of the bar at the time, King's Counsel, Mr. Theodore Hobson, likes to encourage attorneys. So he would have been the first one who approached me in terms of getting involved in the activities of the bar, and then in terms of joining the council. So I initially joined the council, which is the governing body of the Bar Association, as an ordinary member. And then a former president approached me about acting as her secretary on the council. So I took on the role as secretary, which does most of the administrative stuff and provides that support to the president. And then when our current attorney general became president of the bar, he also requested that I stay on as his secretary. So I acted as his secretary up until his resignation in August. And then without even considering it, a few members approached me and said, we think that you should take on the mantle.
Nice.
So I adhered to the request. It is.
I like that. I like that.
It's not an easy task. It's very time consuming, especially as a sole practitioner. But there is no greater reward than providing service to your country, to an association that you are a part of, and to an association that is one that should be held in high esteem in the Federation. So it is my honor.
Did you feel any pressure though once you were approached?
Yes. Yes, there's pressure. I mean, our current Attorney General, his shoes can be big to fill.
Okay.
He would have started a few things. The benefit, though, is that he and we are batchmates at university.
Oh, nice.
So we always had a good relationship. So even now, in terms of reaching out to him to get any support on anything that he would have started, the transition has been easy.
Nice. Nice. Happy to hear. Happy to hear indeed.
All right, so one of the questions that I'm sure our viewers are dying to know is what role does the association play in, I guess, regulating the profession?
Okay, so the profession itself is governed by a Legal Profession Act. So the role of the association is clearly set out in the Act. It specifies what the role is. I did bring the Act, but I won't read it verbatim. You can find the legislation online, and you can go and read all the part that the Bar Association plays on your own. But generally, the Bar Association is responsible for maintaining and supporting the general administration of justice, providing support to attorneys. We are also responsible for ensuring that the standard of the profession is maintained by way of a disciplinary committee, so that individuals who have issues with attorneys, there is a process that you can lodge a formal complaint. It goes before a disciplinary tribunal, and there are disciplinary actions that can be taken. And let me just put a plug here. We have just reinstated our disciplinary committee. They have been appointed by the Chief Justice from the 1st of November to serve for 3 years. Okay. So if there are any persons out there who may be aggrieved, there is a process. You can find the form and the affidavit on our website, www.sknbar.org. The secretary of the committee is the registrar. So any complaints, you can lodge them with the registrar. As well as we provide support to the bench as well in terms of how they interact with the bar, the bench that is the judges and magistrates, and just generally assist in maintaining the standard of the profession and the administration of justice.
That's a very high bar indeed.
It is.
A high one.
It is.
So what are some of your goals whilst you're at the helm of this organization?
Okay, so in terms of goals, and one of the main things that I hope to focus on during my tenure would be continued legal education. In some jurisdictions, this is mandatory. For example, in Jamaica, you have to complete a certain number of continued legal education sessions per year to qualify for your practicing certificate. It's not mandatory here. However, we do try to have sessions every quarter on different aspects of the law so that attorneys can keep abreast with changing rules, changing legislations. We've had, since I've become president, well, before becoming president, I was actually in charge of the Continued Legal Education Committee. But since I've been president, we've had 3 sessions so far within the last 2 months. We've had sessions on advocacy, and we had a joint session with Lake Health and Well-being, on public health law. And then the issue of public consultation, public education, educating the general public on aspects of law which would be relevant to everybody's day-to-day activities. That is one of our main goals. And in terms of, again, supporting the administration of justice by creating a bridge between bench and bar to ensure that attorneys are comfortable and the judges are comfortable if there's anything that the attorneys need to do to assist the judges in their work and vice versa. We have a direct line with the judges and the magistrates to ensure that work is just made lighter for everybody. Yeah. So in terms of goals, that would be the main goals, as well as in terms of legislative review. The hope is that we have a legislative review committee and that we can really sit down and look at some of the legislations which are outdated, or just we found some which we deem unconstitutional, which so we can really put forward a proposal to the AG's chambers to have some revision of some of our much needed bits of legislation.
Your concept of what a good lawyer is, the question actually is, what does it mean to be a good lawyer?
That is a loaded question. A good lawyer is not just an excellent lawyer in the courtroom. A good lawyer is a well-rounded lawyer, a lawyer who is able to balance both work as well as social and community activities, for example, being able to be involved in bar association activities. A good lawyer is an attorney who is not pompous and arrogant. That can be something that we can easily be portrayed as, who is humble, who accepts that they will not win every case, and can take with constructive criticism, and just generally somebody whose focus is on ensuring that their client's position is taken care of, not necessarily meaning their client will win on their time, but that whatever they do it to the highest standards of ethics and good judgment. That is what I think is a good lawyer.
You say that, you great answer, by the way. I'm thinking ethics is a very important part, especially when it comes to public perception of what lawyers represent. So,
yes.
So, Ms. Merchant, no one person is above the law, but some actions are beneath it. What does this mean to you?
One person is above the law, but some actions are beneath it. Well, actions beneath it perhaps would be actions that not only do not fall afoul to anything legal, but just, or rather, let me say this, they're not actions which you can be held criminally liable for, but they may be actions which ethically may be questionable. Okay. So you may not be convicted in a court of law, but in a court of ethics and public opinion, your actions may be questionable.
Oh, wow. How many courts are there? Since we're talking about courts.
We have the Magistrates Court, we have the High Court, we have the Court of Appeal, and then you have the Privy Council. You have different tribunals in between.
So ethics would fall in that?
Well, in terms of ethics, there is a general code of ethics which lawyers have to abide or should abide by. And if they fall afoul of the code of ethics, then that is where the disciplinary committee comes in, and they will, as a tribunal, sit and make a determination on that issue.
And that distinction, for the layman might be a little subtle. I'm glad that you brought it up, because there's illegality and then there's something falling afoul of ethics.
Yes.
And sometimes it's not illegal, but there's something immoral about it on some level.
Yes.
Right? So based on that and everything else that we've said before, what advice would you give to anyone? I want this myself. What advice would you give to anyone willing or interested in starting a career in law?
I will first tell you that it is a lot of hard work. It is not, persons see the profession as glitz and glamour and expensive cars and nice suits. And that is not what it is.
Okay.
That may be how it is portrayed by some attorneys, but that is not what the profession is.
Okay.
You have to be prepared to do the work. You have to be prepared to study hard. It is a profession where at times you will become sometimes depressed, sometimes very down, because it can be extremely challenging. If you intend to be a litigator, you also have to ensure that your people skills are at a certain standard, because dealing with persons isn't easy. It's not just about studying and being able to regurgitate the law, but there is a certain level of social skill that is required as an attorney. So you have to ensure that you have that down packed, especially when dealing with matters like family matters and so on. There's a sense of empathy that you have to invoke on your clients. So I will say, work hard. Don't think that when you've completed your studies, that is the end, that is actually the beginning. Ensure that you keep abreast with senior attorneys. Make friends with the older attorneys. They will give you very good guidance. And just stay humble. And it could be a very exciting profession. So be open-minded and take in everything that you can possibly get as a young attorney.
I also see you had a little stint in Angola in 2015. How was that?
That was great. Angola is more or less home number 2, or it was back then. I had an interest in working in Angola full-time. When I completed my studies, there was an attraction with working in Angola. They had a lot of corporate, commercial matters. So I did mine service training there in 2009. And then a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, she was appointed as a minister of government, and she ended up in a dilemma when I finished my master's, and she asked if I could come and assist in getting her office, at a certain stage until she was able to hire somebody. So I took up the challenge and went there and did a 3-month stint in Angola, worked, and then came home and opened my own practice.
Oh, nice. Okay.
All right, so in our final moments, we want to talk about Law Week, what's being done to celebrate this year.
Yes. So Law Week is slated from the 20th of November, which I think is next week. The theme for Law Week is advocating for the community. Now, since COVID, we've had a little scaled back Law Week, so we're now trying to work our way back into physical activities. So on Sunday the 20th, we start with church services at the Immaculate Conception Catholic and Co-Cathedral in Bastille and the St. Teresa's Catholic Church in Charlestown. On Monday, we will have a panel discussion on domestic violence, and that will be on Win FM from 10 to 11 a.m. The presenters, we have Michelle O'Brien, we have Taliba Byron, both attorneys, we have a Chanel Charles from the Ministry of Gender Affairs, we have a Sergeant Rogers from the Special Victims Unit, and Denise Allen, who will be the chair of the panel. I will put a stickler there. I believe that would be a very interesting panel discussion, considering certain recent happenings in the Federation, and I would encourage everybody to join in on that panel discussion. I think they would be also taking calls. On Tuesday, we have some continuing legal education sessions. We have one with Mrs. Ivorcia Brown, and entitled Client Counsel Battle of the Minds, Enhancing Your Emotional Intelligence. It's not just about legal studies, but we are also looking at the holistic development of attorneys and their mental well-being. We also have another topic by Justice Ian Marley, KC, on becoming much better in court. Justice Marley has partnered with the bar in terms of pushing sessions on advocacy. So we've had some sessions with him. On Wednesday, we have presentations to the Horizon Rehabilitation Center and the Flamboyant Nursing Home in Nevis. We've adopted both institutions, so we have done donations in the past, and we intend to continue this as part of our social involvement. On Thursday, we have visits to the high schools on various topics. On Friday, we have a sip and paint with Vaughn Ansley in Nevis. This started last year. It was such a hit that it was the first thing that everybody asked for, having Law Week this week.
Were the paintings completed?
Yes, and we actually had a very interesting painting from our former resident judge,
Okay.
because the judges, we encouraged them to take part in the session, and I think that would have sparked his love for painting, and he
Okay.
indicated to us since that he went and bought a whole barrage of paint, and he would have taken on a new
nice.
hobby. So that was very interesting. And then on Saturday, we usually have outdoors activities, but this year we will be joining the annual charity 2K walk and run in support of the St. Christopher Children's Home.
Oh, nice, nice, nice.
So that is our week of activities. We do intend to still have some other activities for the balance of the year.
Okay.
You can follow our website, www.sknbar.org. We also have a Facebook presence, and you can see any activities, sessions. We usually post them there.
Well, since this is the last time I might be questioning you like this, one final question for you. Are you running or are you walking in that 2K affair?
Maybe a little of both.
Okay. All right. Active.
A little of both, yes.